Hey everybody, welcome to the main show. If you want some hot political action, we've got it for you this week over in the Major Spoilers Podcast pre-show. Podcast pre-show is part of your Patreon subscription that is tariff-free for now. Although I will say, I've got a way that I can use tariffs to my advantage now, Rodrigo.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So I always get these BS emails saying, "Hey, we want to buy a paid post on your site," and I always was like, "Oh, that'll be $1,000." Then it's like $2,000. Then it was like, "Oh, it's $4,000." But if you want one, you should do it now because we're going to have to raise our prices soon. Today, nice. I got one asking about a paid post, and I said, "Yeah, got bad news. We do accept paid posts, but because of the tariffs, we've had to increase our price from $5,000 to $10,000. This is the government in action. I'm sorry about that, but that's what we have to pay to cover these tariffs." And I didn't hear back from the guy, so I think that's going to be my new thing. Is thanks to the tariffs, we have to charge $10,000 now. Still hoping one of the days one of these rich Nigerian princes will fall for my scam and pay me $10,000 for a paid post on Major Spoilers.
I am sure that here and there are just totally legit people and businesses that are benefiting, right? For example,
yeah, there are probably some.
It's like lockdown, COVID, absolutely tragic, fumbled by the government. But the video game industry saw a huge surge because people were buying video games, playing more video games, right?
Yeah.
Now video games are dealing with the bust side of that, right? Because that growth could not be continued.
Yeah.
And they're having a lot of problems.
Aren't they doing some layoffs? And of course, with tariffs, of course, at this point, the Nintendo Switch 2 will stay at the same price, but all of the accessories are jumping in price.
But it was going to be, or is going to be, the most expensive console Nintendo has ever put out.
Yeah, like what is it? $700, $600?
It's like $700.
$700 for a handheld, man. That's like, I don't remember how much I paid for the PS4, but it just feels.
It is supposed to be. I guess they're saying it's $500.
Okay, but, still $500. That's a lot.
But it is improved and blah blah blah. Whatever. It's the next generation.
Sure, it is.
The Switch is basically a really like a very tweaked tablet to do one thing very well, right? And so the Switch 2 has like a lot of new technology to do that. But the problem is that, these tariffs, people don't know if they're going to have to pay more, right? Right now, they're saying it's staying at the same price, but they don't know. They're saying that because these tariffs get turned on and off like twice a day.
I kind of ignore it.
Right now, there's no reason for Nintendo to piss you off by saying, well, if the tariffs are high, then we're going to hike up the price. Yeah. They can just do it. And there's very little consequences for lying to you and telling you, no, it'll be at the same price, right?
Yeah. Well, listen, Rodrigo, obviously, I think, you've already got one Switch. You don't need another Switch. Sometimes you have to just do with one video game system, and you don't need three video game systems.
You're right. I did not buy a current generation console. I always thought, that once the PS4 had run its course, I was going to look at the market again and then either get an Xbox Series X, I guess I still don't know if that's exactly what it's called, or a PS5. And I have gotten neither because they're very expensive and weirdly, surprisingly few good games have come out for consoles in the past few years.
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of good ones, but you know what? They've also come out on PC.
Yeah. Scoop up that PC, man. I was making more of a joke on Trump's. Maybe you don't need $37, Matthew. You can get by with $3.
Yeah.
I need $37.
But that's the thing. In the United States, people are consumers. Being a consumer is not a bad thing to Americans, or to most Americans. People make consuming part of their personality, right? Like, in fact, you and me, right now, we're on a podcast that generally mostly talks about comic books, which is
Yep.
a product that
Yep.
people can buy,
Yep.
right?
For
So,
now.
we're part of that industry, certainly. Um, but eventually you're going to get to a point where people just won't buy it, can't afford it, right? You'll only have
Yeah.
like your early adopters, your wealthy people are going to buy a Nintendo Switch 2 because it's going to be $500 for the Switch plus tax
hmm
plus 80 more dollars for a game. Like that's the thing that people are really freaking out about is that the
Yeah.
games are going to be
I
$80.
tell you what, the next
So,
Zelda game better be worth $80.
well, the next Zelda game is the current Zelda game. You can buy an upgrade for it for the Switch 2 and play it in your Switch 2 with added content. That's another thing that people are mad about it. They're like, "Why are you charging for that?"
Yeah.
Well, so of course, um, because the Nintendo Switch was recently announced, it's been sort of the example that people use to talk about these tariffs. And they're like, okay, well, Trump says, like, clearly what Trump wants, quote unquote, as if he had like normal desires like a human being, what Trump wants is to bring manufacturing back to the US, right? The Nintendo Switch comes out, the Switch 2 comes out later this year,
hmm
right? How long would it take to create the manufacturing necessary in the US
10
to do
years
this?
is the answer.
Most experts that I saw that replied to that said an absolute minimum at breakneck speed, 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So in 5 years, you get a Nintendo Switch made in the US. More than like, assuming nothing goes wrong, more than likely it's 10 years,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And
So
guess who, knock on wood, God, knock on wood. Guess who's not going to be around in 5 years? And whoever comes in next, knock on wood. Oh, please, knock on wood. Will not have the same belief in tariffs. So the tariffs go away in 3.5 years. And suddenly, why would I want to build
right,
a factory in the United States? So,
exactly. Again, these things are being switched on and off daily,
yeah.
right? Today,
Yeah.
sometimes twice daily. And
Yep.
so companies don't want to do anything. They're just kind of sitting
Yep.
there waiting it out. And they're like, hey, literally whoever, hey, Sony, you want to build some stuff in the US so you can get stuff cheaper to Americans? And they're like, absolutely not. Because what the world is finding out is that although the American market is huge, there's other huge markets.
Yeah.
Brazil's a huge market.
Yeah.
Like the rest of Latin America is a huge market. Europe is a huge market.
India is a huge market.
China, Japan,
Yeah.
Korea,
Yeah.
huge, enormous markets, right? So, not just in video games, but in a lot of things, people are going like, well, they're like being real butts about beef. Hey, doesn't Australia have a lot of beef? Ring, ring, ring. Hey, Australia, can we get beef from you? All right. And that was the farthest I'm
That's
going with that
that's
answer. Yeah,
Australia right there.
yeah. There you go.
I think you're just supposed to say Foster's.
I don't say Foster's. I'm Australian.
Yeah. So, in other words,
Rip
Matthew,
on the Bobby.
you're not holding the cards. But what I am holding in my hands is a copy of Will Eisner's A Comics Biography from Stephen Weiner and Dan Mauser. We kind of talked about this before. And I wanted to kind of talk about this in the general show, not as a review of the book from NBM Graphic Novels. I find this, if you don't know anything about Will Eisner, I think that this book is hits on all the talking points that you need to know about Will Eisner, but done in a much better way than one of those. Sorry, I'm just going to bag on the publisher, Blue Wave or Tidal Wave or whatever they are, the ones that do the really Wikipedia bio comics where they just go to Wikipedia and copy it and then put out a comic book. This one is well done. I think it's well researched, but I do have a problem with biography stuff in that I believe that all biographies are biased regardless. Even if you go in trying to say, nope, I'm going to do the most unbiased book on Abraham Lincoln, Honest Abe. I'm going to be unbiased all the way. I bet you're still going to go in there and say, and that's why Abe Lincoln was our greatest president or something. So you're going to make some slip up, or you're going to be interviewing somebody, or you're going to be using data that paints that person that you are talking about in the best light possible. Because why would you just do a whole book about why Abraham Lincoln is awful and expect it to sell? And so that's kind of, and I'm not saying that that's what's happening in this book, but Will Eisner, he does make mistakes, but these are things that he ends up benefiting him at some point in the future. At the same time, a couple of the characters in this book are really kind of awful people. Like Will Eisner's mother is like the worst person in the world, according to this book. Like, why would he even want to put up with this woman when she's constantly putting down everything he does, everything his father does? Just, oh, this is the dumbest thing. This is the worst thing. And the person, they never have the mother say anything nice in the book. And I can't imagine that that's how the mother was in real life. Maybe so, but I don't know. It's something that sits weird with me. And I don't know how you guys feel about bio comics, bio movies, bio books, any of those things. Do you guys always go in with a little sense of, hey, I need to really do a sniff test on this and really see if there's biases in any of this stuff?
I don't even necessarily think of it so much as bias as just, story creation. People want, they want to create the heroes and the villains, and they want to make an arc where there may not necessarily be one. And this is something that really you'll see kind of cyclically as, for instance, Stan Lee, who is one of the major figures in comic books, which is kind of my point of reference for many things.
Who?
You know the guy.
I've never heard of him.
Hang loose, heroes.
Are we talking about Stanley Lieber?
Yes, Stanley Lieber.
Oh, okay.
Larry's big brother.
Larry's big brother. Yes, Larry Lieber's big brother. Yeah.
So that cat went from being a hero to a schmuck to being a hero to being the devil to being an elderly hero and kind of, now being like, you can take him, you leave him. He's gone. So we don't want to speak ill of the dead, but he did some pretty skeevy things. And as each new arc of the Stan story took place, it was something where they kept kind of revisiting the way things had happened. So, when I started reading comics in 78, 79, this man was the publisher of Marvel Comics. He was a hero. He was behind everything. And at that time, they were like, Stan was there, and Jack was there, and Don Heck, and Artie Simek, and all of these people. And then in the 80s, all of a sudden, it was like, well, Stan was a jerk, stealing credit from everybody. Is there truth to both sides of that? Absolutely. And as we go along, we see it come back to the other direction where, okay, Stan's a hero again. But when people are crafting these stories, the books, the movies, the biopics, for lack of an actual word.
That's my word that I use.
I know. That's why I used it. And then I mocked it.
because you used it correctly. So congratulations.
I used it ironically.
You may have a second cookie, Matthew.
Okay. I can't have two cookies.
You can. I'm allowing it. I
take this medication
correctly.
where if I eat two cookies, I'm going to be sick to my stomach all night. But here's the deal.
Matthew has a VPN, so it blocks all cookies.
Matthew injects himself with Zipbound. But here's the thing. As those narratives are forged, the reality of things kind of go away. If they really sourced Will Eisner's mother is a bee, she's a big fat bee, she's a giant bee, and wrote a whole song about it like Cartman, from Will Eisner saying this, my mother did these things and I felt like they were terrible. And these are actual accounts or family members or people who might have seen this, Will Eisner's wife or siblings or whatever. It's one thing, but to have someone say, well, his mom never really supported him. And then when you're crafting this narrative, to have the mom come in and always say, well, you'll never amount to nothing, Will, that the spirit is stupid and he should put on socks. You've basically created another character. You've created a villain for your story. And yeah, sniff test is one way to put it. I feel like if it's presented to me, it's a biased narrative.
I think if you read this, you would be like, I think you would say, okay, this is painting Will Eisner in a positive light, which, he's a fantastic talent, a tremendous talent, should be celebrated for everything that he did. With what's his name, Dennis Kitchen, has got his big bio doc that's coming out here very soon, with his involvement in making Will Eisner household name for modern audiences. I think all of these things are great, but it's just like Will Eisner walked in and he had the most brilliant idea in the whole entire universe. And it worked great until it didn't. And then he figured something else out. And it was great until it wasn't. And then he decided to step away. And then he went to a comic book convention and the rest is history. And it's just like, come on. I think it's a little bit more than that. But again, that doesn't make an interesting story. And so, yes, I think there's a little bit of bias in there. You know what book I am interested in reading? I'll tell you this. It's one that I've had on my pile for a while.
In this economy?
Yeah, I know, but I bought it before this economy. So I bought it last year.
Okay.
Back when it was Biden's economy.
Didn't you hear?
Okay,
it's still Biden's
yeah. I'll come back around to that in a moment. So heads up to everybody who is part of the Major Spoilers Book Club. Brad and I just released the April Book Club discussion on Slow Horses by Mick Herron. So you can go catch that now. It's absolutely free, so you don't have to be a patron to enjoy it. So anybody listening in the sound of my voice right now, you can go to patreon.com/major spoilers. You can check out the book club. All of the episodes are absolutely free. So if you just sign up, or if you just go there and you're like, hey, I want to be part of the book club, you can do that for free. The May book is The Twisted Ones by T. Kingfisher, which Brad and I had a very heated discussion after our recording last week, which we'll bring up at the end of the month when everyone has finished reading The Twisted Ones. But the one that I'm most interested in is a book called MCU. It is the biography of Marvel Studios from its weird rise and fall and rise again. And most of the people say it's very comprehensive. It is very well told, and because these two come from an reporting entertainment background, they have a lot of stuff on background that they're able to use from past interviews and interactions with people. So I'm very interested in getting into this to find out a little bit more about the MCU and see if it aligns with things that I remember and how things went, or if it completely goes sideways. You know what else is really interesting? Bring this back around to the discussion that we had in the pre-show. Do you know who has basically moved out of Atlanta and moved to London?
Coca-Cola.
Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios
Really?
is doing production for the Doctor Doom movie, or the whatever the Avengers Doom thing is. Doing it all in London at the Pinewood Studios, which may mean that Marvel, or it's maybe cheaper to maybe cheaper to film at Pinewood Studios. But that would mean that Marvel Studios is not a movie, or the Doctor Doom movie is not a movie being produced in the United States, which means it might be able to fall under this 100% tariff that was recently announced and has kind of faded, and people are still kind of shaking their head of what the heck's going on. I wonder, again, let's put our little conspiracy hats on. I know, Rodrigo, that leads to the dark zone, to the dark place, to the bad place.
Well,
But
no, what leads there is like people ignoring like the actual obvious conspiracies in front of them.
Yes. So anybody know who used to be in charge of Marvel before he was summarily ousted?
Roman Polanski.
Nope.
Joss Whedon.
Nope.
Nope. It's oh God, I can't remember. It's Perlmutter.
Ike Perlmutter was the big wig to do at Marvel Studios until Kevin Feige basically had him ousted from everything, and he's been removed from the board. Right. Guess who also during the previous administration was a huge supporter of one Donald J. Trump, so much so that he was given a cabinet position on Veterans Affairs. That's right, Ike Perlmutter. I wonder if Ike Perlmutter, who is rarely seen in public and rarely photographed, there's really only about one or two photographs of Ike Perlmutter that are in existence. I wonder if there wasn't a little phone call made that said, hey, let's get back at those bastards who kicked me out. And sure enough, Ike, whatever you need. I mean, it's not proof, but man, it's a strange coincidence.
No, but this administration is like, it's like when somebody accidentally, like there's something in the kitchen, somebody grabs it and they don't realize that like a specific person brought it and it belonged to them.
Yeah.
Like they thought it was out for everybody.
Yeah.
And then that person complains to the boss, and the boss, instead of being like, hey, somebody grabbed, Nancy's yogurt, please don't do that. That's, that wasn't it. Instead, they pass sweeping legislation
No
that
food
says
at all.
from here on out, nobody is allowed to use the fridge anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like I've been at workplaces like that, where like in order to not deal with a problem directly, the boss is like, okay, well, here's a huge sweeping announcement that everybody has to abide by. And that's kind of what living in this administration looks like, except, of course, for the disappearing people off the streets.
Yes. I was going to say, speaking of disappearing people off the streets, and talk about Grand Theft Auto 6, but I mean, the burning question.
I did leave you a very hard transition. I get that. I'm sorry.
I mean, listen, Grand Theft Auto 6 is all about promoting bad things. So if we're going to make a transition that uses that, we might as well. I mean, at least you're beating people up.
Here
on
we
the
go
streets.
again.
I know. I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a huge fan of Grand Theft Auto, mainly because of the promoting violence. Breaking the law. But Matthew, I'm curious if you watched the new trailer and if you're super excited about Grand Theft Auto 6. It looks interesting.
I cautiously am excited for a couple of reasons. Grand Theft Auto goes in cycles, and you'll have a really
and race cars and airplanes and motorboats, apparently.
Tanks.
Wah, wah. Okay, so now tanks, you're welcome. The whole thing.
Apparently, there's a UFO in the online version. So
there's a UFO in the console version of GTA 5, but you have to go to the top of Mount Chiliad at 3 a.m. on a night when it's raining.
There's also a UFO in Red Dead Redemption 2.
Mm-hmm. And if you fly high enough above the military base, which risks getting caught on their radar and shot down by fighter jets, there's actually a UFO with FIB markings that hovers above the military base. And the FIB, of course, is the local listening agency, which is neither the or the CIA. But neither here nor there. Grand Theft Auto 6, two things about it excite me. One, it is set in Vice City. And my very favorite game of all of the games ever is Vice City, which was set in 85, 86.
Yeah.
And basically took place with it was just a whole Miami Vice riff. You literally had a friend named Lance who looked just like Philip Michael Thomas and drove a white Lamborghini. And your character kind of, looked like a very, very freaked out Don Johnson, maybe a little bit more Ray Liotta. But Grand Theft Auto Vice City was what really cemented my love of the game after I really kind of enjoyed 3. So going back to Vice City, which is essentially Miami in a modern setting, which I think is going to be set in like 2050? I don't know. Excites me. And this is going to sound weird because we're talking about characters who literally, if you get bored, can drive up on the sidewalk and start running people down. Or, for instance, if I ever needed to get somewhere and I knew it was near the hospital, I would just throw myself to my doom off of something, and then I would spawn at the hospital, spend $1,500 and have a shorter walk. There's a female protagonist for the first time in Grand Theft Auto history. Apparently, the main character, Grand Theft Auto 5 had a rotating wheel of 3 guys. And your three guys were basically the protagonists of the previous three big Grand Theft Auto games. So you had a character like CJ from San Andreas. You had a character like Tommy Vercetti from Vice City. And you had a character who was just a complete psychopath, like the main character of Grand Theft Auto 3. And so this one features a couple, a man and woman couple who are apparently both getting out of jail and have to set up their life.
Well, one of them's been out of jail for a while. She's just getting out of prison.
They're both in ye. I see her get out of prison. That's actually really cool. But the idea of this silly, overblown, stupid, goofy, video game violence that's probably going to turn us all into psychopaths, finally being less sexist. It kind of, I don't know. It kind of feels like an actual step forward. And while I haven't necessarily, looking at the trailer, I haven't necessarily seen the huge leap in graphics that they keep promising me. I also feel like this, and I hate to say it because I know as soon as I commit to something like this, they'll put out the new one, but this might drive me to a PlayStation 5. Because
in this economy,
good.
You're just gonna skip right over 4, huh?
I have a 4. I have a 4. Yeah, I got a 4 for Christmas a few years ago. Is what it is. But the only thing I play on it is Diablo 3, and that game is 12 years old. And
need to branch out.
Why would I do that? I don't have that kind of time.
So you can play Grand Theft Auto.
Do you have any idea what my dance card looks like right now? I don't have time for this. I can't make time for 10 things right now.
After Mambo number 5, you're pretty much out for the night. So,
what's going to get me to a PS5? My dog doesn't like it when I'm on the computer. If I get on the computer, he comes over and he starts whining. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, okay, dog, let's go do what you want to do. You want to play? You want to do whatever? He's like, no, he just wants to hang out on the couch.
Yep.
And when I'm on my computer, he can't hang out next to me. Right. So either I'm going to have to get like a computer couch so that my dog can be on there, or I'm going to have to get a console so that at least when I'm playing video games, obviously when I'm working, there's nothing I can do. But when I'm playing video games, at least I got to be in the living room.
Yeah.
Because,
we have that same problem with Gwen in that we've taught all the animals to use buttons to communicate.
Wow.
So like Bruno, we had to take the button away just because he was spamming it all the time. We taught him to push a button for when he wanted a treat. And then one day he jumped on my lap and I'm like, Bruno, you weigh a lot, dude. And so we had to take the treat button away because it was just always like treat, 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 treat. But with Gwen, we have a button to let us know when she needs to go out. Like if she needs to go use the bathroom, she'll push the button that says out and she goes out. Well, she also knows that when she pushes the button, it elicits a reaction from us. So now she is using it to let us know when she has to go out, but also when it's like, pay attention to me, damn it. And so it's be like, she'll sit there and look at you and she'll push the button and you're like, oh, do you need to go out? And you'll get up and walk to the door and then she'll just wander off a different direction. Like you little... And I could technically use the B word because she's a girl dog.
Yeah.
But we have taught her to do that. We're trying to we've got her to do the play button. Sometimes when she's bored, she'll go over and push the play button. So those things do kind of work, but they take practice to get the animal to realize that there's a connection between the two. Mojo's he's an orange cat, so he's dumb. He doesn't.
Yeah,
he just
presses the dog's buttons.
He waits for Bruno to press the treat button and then comes running and waits and hopes that he will also get something. Because Bruno is like, oh, I understand it's age before beauty, so go ahead, old man, eat the treat. I'll push it again and get my own treat. So, that's rather interesting. But yeah, that whole button thing is kind of a neat thing to get your animal into.
We actually have the problem with Dipstick is we got him because everybody's working now. And so there won't be someone to come and feed him. And, the federal employee had to return to the workplace. So we got him a little timer. And he's now figured out exactly how long 2.5 hours is. So about 5 minutes before the 2.5 hours goes click and the door opens, he starts yelling to tell you the door is going to open. The door is going to open, and he just meow, meow, meow. But when I play games, he literally will climb up and he will lie across my gaming arms, and I'm an evil person, so I just keep playing with the idiot cat lying across my arms, and he'll just dead weight on my arms in the hopes that 8 pounds of cat will be enough to convince me to put. Oh, sorry, I woke him up. To put the game down and actually pay attention to the idiot. So I'm afraid if we gave him a button, he would just spam it all day.
There's a way to get them to where they don't spam it, but Bruno was really abusing it because it would just be like, "Oh, sure, good job. Here's a treat," and then suddenly he's like, "You're kind of tubby. We need to wean you off of those treats all the time." So,
have you seen the?
But he will
the
sometimes
cat with like the 40 buttons online.
Yeah, at one point we had Bruno up to 3 different buttons. But then because when we got Gwen, we're like, okay, well, now we need to devote a button so Gwen can go outside, and now we have to do the button so that they play, and so we've tried to work them up to a larger vocabulary, and there is a dog online that has a really good vocabulary. So I mean, even if you just need to know, Rodrigo, that I always forget the dog's name. I want to call him Bolt, but I know it's Grumsh or something like that. Gronch. Yeah. Man, if you need to know when Gronch needs to go outside, putting that, that out button right next to the doors so that he triggers to know that, oh, this means it's time to go outside and potties. Then, man, that was a good investment.
You've got to be careful though, because the lady with the cat who has all of the different buttons started 3, 4, 5 nights in a row. In the middle of the night, she started hearing stranger window, stranger outside, stranger outside. And it freaked her out. And she kept trying to figure out what was going on. Stranger outside at 3 a.m. over and over and over. Turns out there's a squirrel in the tree outside. And so the kitty is like, stranger, stranger, stranger. But yeah, if the cat starts to actually be able to communicate, first off, I'm afraid that he's smarter than me. But second of all, I'm afraid that he's going to start telling us.
Up his poop? Do you feed him? Of course he's smarter than you.
I do none of those things.
He's still
This is not my cat. This is the child's cat. And the mother has agreed to take care of the child's cat. The father only buys the litter and changes the cat boxes every once in a while because of myxomatosis or whatever it is that you get from cat boxes.
There is a burning.
We're okay. I was gonna say my dog is okay with going outside. My wife and my schedule aren't terribly aligned, so there's usually somebody here to take him out throughout the day. So
that's good.
There is a burning question from last week, Rodrigo. Did you go see the new Avengers movie?
You mean like Thunderbolts asterisk?
No. No, asterisk, the new Avengers.
Oh, was that a...
Yeah, so that's the thing. So the Thunderbolts with the asterisk is at the end of the movie. It's already out there for everywhere, so it's not like a spoiler. It's the asterisk stands for the new Avengers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so the whole marketing thing after I think it started on Monday was they're changing everything to the new Avengers now.
The new Avengers had Joanna Lumley from Absolutely Fabulous working with Steed, as I recall.
Isn't
no Thunderbolts then?
No, I was gonna see if I could go see it tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
And now I don't have to.
Well, no, you still have to. You still have to, because apparently there is a post-credit sequence that absolutely, quote unquote, changes everything. ... Again.
Is it Morbius? It's Morbius, isn't it?
No.
It's Morbin time.
Let's just say there might be something fantastic if you stick around to the post-credit scene.
Oh God. Now I'm depressed and don't want to see it.
Fantastically, the Iron Fist is back.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see Carol Danvers again. So
Carol Danvers is one of my favorite parts.
I don't know.
Really
I don't know why people don't
appreciate-
like. I don't know why people don't like Brie Larson. I think she's charming. I think she's talented. But I don't. I guess I get that's. And for the character of Captain Marvel, she is playing it like a fighter pilot, so she's very stoic. So I don't understand why people don't like Brie Larson as Captain Marvel.
Sexism.
Oh.
It's almost the exact same character as Hal Jordan, Green Lantern.
Yeah, Brie Larson got caught in the crossfire of the culture wars. That's why. And it's like, oh, look at how stupid this movie is. Like, what was it? What was the thing that they were like, we should go see this movie instead?
Oh, God.
I think it was Alita, wasn't it? They were like,
oh, probably
Battle Angel Alita,
like Battle Angel.
Right.
They were like, instead of seeing that, we should go see this movie because Captain Marvel is woke. And like, excuse me, Chodes. Alita Battle Angel is a movie about poor people trying to like make their way in a world that's completely taken over by like super companies and like a corrupt government. Like, how is that woke? Or how is that not woke, right? Like, what the heck, man?
Yeah, the really horrifying part is I've actually seen the Marvels, and Brie is a really layered actress. She's a very complex character.
Always has been.
There's a whole, and that's the thing. There's a whole sequence in the Marvels where she has to sing and dance because she's on an alien world where this happens, and we discover, oh, she's also the princess. And it's just this really neat, bizarre kind of moment where you're just, these stories have actually been happening behind the scenes that we don't see, which is something we don't usually get out of the Marvel Universe. People talk about the Avengers being great, but they did 2 things in 15 years. Sure. You know who else did 2 things in 15 years? Trevor Phillips. Anyway, but yeah, it's literally sexism. There's a guy who still is proud that he made a cut of Avengers Endgame that eliminates Brie Larson from it. And because her name is Brie, he says that it's the lactose intolerant version. And I want him to hurt. I want everyone who loves him to say things that hurt his feelings. And I want him to have a nosebleed that won't stop. Not to make him sick.
Wait till you find out about wait till you find out about the Thin Red Line. And that was actually done by the studio. Okay, so you know what is cool this week are our supporters over at patreon.com/major spoilers. This week, thanks out to Filbert66, who changed their pledge to become a yearly subscriber and save some money in the process. Thank you very much, Filbert66. Also, thank you this week to Mike Rutledge, who increased their pledge. Thank you, Mike. And finally, thank you to Rich Hedman, who went from a silver level member to a gold level member and got instant access to the VIP monthly chat. Thank you so much, Rich. You can find out more, get your name shouted out right here on the show, support everything we do, patreon.com/major spoilers. So one of the things this past weekend was Free Comic Book Day. And one of the questions was asked during the VIP chat was, what was my thought on what is the future of Free Comic Book Day? If people want to go and find out my answer to that, you can go listen to that in the VIP chat. But Matthew, what is your thoughts on Free Comic Book Day going forward? Does it have a future? Is it going to die? Does it need to take a break?
I feel like it has a future with an asterisk.
The new Avengers.
And I feel like, stop it. I feel like it has to. Okay, so this is where I have to kind of tie this together with the comic book industry. If the industry continues to survive, and if the industry manages to continue doing something that resembles traditional, actual, print comic books, what some people call the floppies, those people are mean, by the way. They're the people who go and they shoot fat people walking down the street from the neck down for B-roll. They do. They're mean. But anyway, I feel like it can, but there's also an important thing that's probably going to happen sooner rather than later. It's going to become kind of an obligation thing where they feel like we really have to somebody has to put together Free Comic Book Day, because I had thought, was it not necessarily something that's facilitated by Diamond, which is now in the process of chapter?
It's already sold, already been sold.
Yeah,
they're just waiting for approval. So
some entity, person, company is going to have to start ramrodding that, and I feel like it may be one of those things where if you can't get like some of these big giant firms that are using their comic books as loss leaders to kind of get involved in this, make it like a cross promotion between Disney and WB or whatever the hell. I feel like it's probably going to I don't think it's ever going to be what it was, but I feel like it's going to be something that's going to continue, kind of like Father's Day, where eventually it's just that you have to do something for Father's Day, if that makes sense. On a lesser scale, obviously, because comic books are,
so, ladies and gentlemen,
in my experience, according
to Matthew, next year, Free Comic Book Day will be Free Socks and Underpants Day.
Yeah, ties.
You know what?
Yeah.
You get a Wolverine tie.
Rodrigo, what are your thoughts on the future of Free Comic Book Day?
Yeah, I don't know. I think Free Comic Book Day as an event kind of came and went.
Yes, it did. This year was a very weird year because of the Diamond issue, and even though everyone said it would move forward, it just was kind of a blip and didn't do anything. I mean, I don't know what comic retailers were, but I have heard from several other people that were like, yeah, just passed us by and we didn't even realize it. So
yeah. So not only did that happen this year, I mean, there was a point where every Free Comic Book Day was like a big event, and not just comic book stores, but other stores that sold comic books, like your media stores, like our Hastings back in Hayes. Did something
closed
for
10
Free
years
Comic
now.
Book Day.
Closed 10 years now, Rodrigo.
Yeah, it's the ancient days. I've been gone a long time. Yeah. I was there a long time, as we established in the pre-show, and I've been gone a long time.
Is this
so long, in fact, that they've changed the name back to Fossil Station for the town I used to live in.
Yes, and we're officially changing the name back to Hayes City instead of just Hayes.
So Hayes City sounds better.
No, that's the actual. That's the
city of Hayes City.
That
Hayes
is
City.
The actual
Hayes
name
City.
of the city is Hayes City.
Hayes City 50-50. Yeah. Was this the 23rd or 24th Free Comic Book Day?
I have no idea.
Was it 2003? Well, it started with Tobey Maguire, didn't it? Was that 2003? Yeah, because the first Free Comic Book Day, I was working in the comic shop, and it was tied into May
4th, 2002 was the first one.
Right, because I remember having a discussion.
Let's see. Here are the comics that were released on the first Free Comic Book Day. Ultimate Spider-Man #1. Dark Horse's One Shot Star Wars Tales, A Jedi Weapon. There was a Tomb Raider 1 1/2 comic that was released that year.
That was terrible.
Let's see. Justice League Adventures. There was also, and that was based on the animated series. And it looks like those were the main ones that were given away in 2002. Okay. And then the next year, it was 29 publishers participated in it. And by Free Comic Book Day 2012, more than 1 million people attended the events. And in 2015, they gave away 5.6 million comics. I think with COVID, and I talked about this before, COVID really had a big impact on Free Comic Book Day and really kind of putting a damper on that a lot. But Rodrigo, did you have some other thoughts?
No, absolutely. I was going to say that. There's a few things. So here in Seattle, they are closing Heaven Sent Chicken, which just recently, like here, and I think they haven't done it yet, but they're going to. And I was like, I'm surprised that it made it through the pandemic to close now. And it's actually kind of the same thing And I mean lockdown, not the pandemic, because technically
Right.
anyway. And it's the same thing with Free Comic Book Day. I'm like, oh, it's ending now, or it's still going, and stuff's happening. I'm surprised that they picked it back up after lockdown. Like that seems like the time when they would have been like, okay, well, we don't know what's happening. Let's not do this for a while. Maybe we can bring it back. But no, apparently they kept it going.
Yeah, if you read about Ad Populum, which is the company that bought the diamond side of everything, and Universal bought the Alliance game side of it. The first sentence, and I read this in the VIP live chat, but the first sentence of Ad Populum's company description really makes you get a sour stomach really quick. Ad Populum aligns corporate strategy and fosters growth across its unique roster of consumer products and entertainment brands by leveraging its strong global retail distribution, product development, and manufacturing capabilities. I mean, that to me is just like warning signs go off when I read that kind of stuff. But then when you find out who is Ad Populum, they own NECA, the toy manufacturer, Kid Robot. They own WizKids. They own Chia Pet. They own Smiffy's, whatever the heck Smiffy's is. They own Graceland. So I don't know if that means like they own Elvis's Graceland. I'm thinking so. From that standpoint, it feels like they know how to market stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say all of those, except for Smiffy's. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Like all of those brands are actually still relevant. Even something like Chia Pet, surprisingly, right? It's you still see Chia Pets around.
So that gives me some hope that they will continue on with Free Comic Book Day. But if they're looking at this, if they're coming in as if this were just a venture capitalist group that was coming in, it would be like, why the hell would we give away free comics? These comics need to be making us some money. So I'm a little bit more up on Free Comic Book Day now that I know a little bit more about Ad Populum, and people can find out more about that as well. Let's see. What else do we got here? Poll of the week time. Everyone is familiar with Warren Zevon. He was a singer-songwriter for many, many, many years, released many, many, many albums and many, many popular songs. Of his many, many popular songs, 2 are on the question this week. Which one do you like more? Werewolves of London or Lawyers, Guns, and Money? Matthew?
Werewolves of London. It has just kind of that. I love a good story song, and it has that joyful moment where you're just like, beep. So absolutely that one. And Lawyers, Guns, and Money is just too cynical for my tastes.
Really? Because it's also a story song about a guy who can't get his, he's a daddy's boy, and he just can't, he keeps screwing up, and he has to keep asking his dad to send help.
Cynical. Too cynical.
I mean, Rodrigo, Werewolves of London or Lawyers, Guns, and Money?
I think I'm also going to have to go with Werewolves of London. I think for Zevon's like story songs, if I want to be depressed, then I'll just listen to I forget the actual name, but it's like the Headless Thompson Gunner.
Yes.
By the way, I'm sure you guys have, but he put out this record called Genius as he was dying. So I've listened to that a lot. It has this song called Poor Pitiful Me, which every once in a while I put on.
That was I think that was a re-release of a song, because Poor Pitiful Me has been around since like the 70s, 80s.
Okay.
Yeah. But no, that's a really good song too. I think most people look at Carmelita as his best song ever. But in this question, we're looking at specifically Werewolves of London or Lawyers, Guns, and Money. I would have said Werewolves of London just because it's kind of a funny joke song.
Yeah.
But Lawyers, Guns, and Money, the more I listen to that and the more I really think about, here's this person that just wants their dad to bail them out all the time, or, and there may be some, not autobiographical, but there may be a specific person that this song is based on. I find it more and more interesting every time I listen to it. Plus I always just like, send lawyers, guns, and money. Dad, get me out of this. And it's just, I don't know. It's got a cool little beat to it, and I really enjoy it. So I think at this point in my life, I think I want to say Lawyers, Guns, and Money I prefer more than Werewolves of London. Not that I'm saying that Werewolves of London is bad, because I really enjoy that. In fact, if you listen to my favorites, if you look at my favorites playlist, both of those songs are on it.
I don't have to. I remember 1991, where every single time I was preparing for a newscast that you were directing, I would hear Werewolves of London playing. So yes, I remember. It's a good song. Yeah. You're probably the reason I love it, you schmuck.
Yeah, no, I borrowed the CD of no, because they asked for it back and I gave it back.
Okay.
But I borrowed for like a year and a half both the Warren Zevon's, it wasn't his greatest hits. Maybe it was his greatest hits. I forget what it was. And also what was the other one that I borrowed for an extended period of time, because they were Warren Zevon wouldn't be who he was if it wasn't for Jackson Browne. So I also had the Jackson Browne's greatest hits album too.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So there you go, listeners. What is your favorite Warren Zevon song of these two, Werewolves of London or Lawyers, Guns, and Money? Head over to the Major Spoilers Discord, jump into the poll of the week, and share your thoughts right there. One more thing to close out this week. I don't mind sharing information about, hey, there's this new book by so-and-so and so-and-so. It looks really interesting. Here's the premise. Here's a quote from the author or the artist or whatever. Those are kind of like bread and butter type stories. But more and more, my mailbox is being filled up with, hey, we've got a Kickstarter going. Can you please write a story about it? And to which I politely decline. Occasionally, I will share them on socials. You know, if the day that the Kickstarter launches, if you send me an email, generally I will repost it, the Kickstarter. But I have noticed that like Boom, Dynamite, Zenoscope, and more, Image, I think, and Zoop does its own thing. It doesn't go through Kickstarter, but it does fundraising for its comics. It seems like the industry is really bypassing the retailer right now and going direct to consumer via Kickstarter. And I kind of vassal back and forth between this feels like a bad thing and it also feels like a good thing. It feels like a bad thing in that you are bypassing the retailer, right? So unless your comic does really, really well and shows strong sales, the chances of, you getting it to every comic book store in America seems relatively slim. Or, if you have reached your entire target market with your Kickstarter campaign, why would you want to release it into retail? Because you've got your audience closed up, with you. They're not going to be distracted by the latest Superman thing. And so that could be bad for the retailer. The good thing is the people or the company that is doing the stuff on Kickstarter, they get to keep whatever money minus the Kickstarter fee and whatever their printing costs are. And that's good, right? So there's a thing right now with a certain Silver Sprocket Press where apparently they're not paying people correctly. I think, Rodrigo, you may have seen this pop up or not.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And, that's kind of bad when a publisher is like, oh, yeah, we've written these contracts in a way that you'll never see a dime. That upsets me. Or that there's no royalties in place for creators upsets me. So by going to Kickstarter, like Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor do, Amanda Palmer? No, Amanda Connor do.
Connor.
It actually benefits them to do that. The downside is just because they have a successful Kickstarter campaign doesn't mean that they're going to actually deliver. And there have been people, not talking about Palmiotti, et cetera, or really any of the names that I've mentioned, that have basically stolen the money and run. But there is a certain creator that has specifically done that, or has failed to deliver after 3 or 4 years of promises. And he keeps launching more fundraising campaigns for his next comic, his next comics, and his next comic. And I feel like there's a rip-off potential there. Or if you are not paying attention to what your actual costs are going to be, you could actually lose money by going to Kickstarter, right? If you're like, oh, it's going to only cost me like $2 to print every comic. And then after the campaign ends, you're like, oh crap, I did the math wrong. And because of all these extra print runs I have to do because we had so much successful, it's actually going to cost more per comic. And so I'm actually going to lose my shirt on this thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think that can kind of be bad. But I'm wondering what you guys think about more and more publishers bypassing solicitations and going to Kickstarter and targeting directly their readers, and maybe essentially bypassing the retailer.
I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense because you can, like back in the day, the main way that you got comics was either you already knew about a comic and it was a Marvel comic and you could actually pay to have it delivered to directly to your house, or you went to a comic book store, which means the people that are making the comics have to like entice the comic book store people to sell things in a particular way. And back in the day where you actually could find comics in drugstores and grocery stores, it was like even more complicated, right? It's like, oh, here's this new comic. And then just be like, nah, just give us like more Green Lanterns and whatever. We don't care. Right. So marketing directly to the consumer, especially now that people can just go through a service to get a digital comic, makes a lot of sense, right? You don't have to worry about does Comixology still exist?
It does,
right? You don't. Well, yes, it does, but you don't have to worry about that, and you don't have to worry about whether Comixology is going to exist by the time your issue number 6 comes out, right? Because presumably PDFs will still exist.
Yeah, but and with these Kickstarters, it's not just electronic; it's also physical fulfillment as well, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, totally. But then you're getting these to exactly the hands that want them.
Yeah.
Presumably. I mean, if somebody's pitching in money, not for the product itself, but to get the product made, and yes, Kickstarter backer stuff can get like really high up there, but like the idea is you're paying you are literally funding something that you will then buy. It just like it makes sense. The thing that makes it a problem is not going directly to the consumer, but rather that like Kickstarter for fulfillment is like it's like a minefield, right? There's like so many things that can happen to make it go wrong, even with the best of intentions, right? We know lots of people who have fulfilled Kickstarters, and they have some horror stories. And those are success. Those are Kickstarters that have successfully been fulfilled.
Yeah. Matthew, what are your thoughts on the industry going directly to Kickstarter to fund the next comic book, the next Power Rangers comic? I'm just using that as an example. That's not what's going on. Boom Studios is actually, let me look it up. The one that they are currently kickstarting is, well, they've got James Tynion's The First Decade, I believe. Oh, they do have a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Kickstarter edition set.
Nice.
So there you go.
The hippy dippy communist part of my brain is like, yeah, this is great. You can get your comic to the 5, the 10, the 3,000 people that want to actually read it. And I have paid more than I would normally pay for a comic, or different types of art. I've paid more than I would normally pay to get it directly from an artist that I know, that I trust, that I'm going to get something that I know I'm going to enjoy. And I feel like it might, I don't consider myself to be a futurist the way Steven does, because I'm usually wrong, but it might end up being the wave of the future, because you are specifically saying there's 12,000 people who want this comic. We're going to print 12,000 copies of this comic. They're all going to have theirs prepaid. We're going to send it to them. Everybody's going to be happy. And I feel like that's a good thing. I feel like, on the other hand, the loss of those brick and mortar stores is a thing.
I mean,
I don't
it's
know
a potential thing, right? I'm not saying that that's what will happen.
Right. But I mean, we're seeing that loss now. We have seen some people say decimation literally means 10%. Okay, fine. A decimation or a quasi-decimation. We've seen these stores going less and less and less and less over the past 15 years, even more so if you go back 30. But you also look at the question of every type of physical store seems to be getting less and less common. And the ones that are left are the same 6 people. So, if it comes to a point where those stores are no longer feasible, in the wake of the loss of a diamond, in the wake of, major changes to the world, the way we look at the world, and a pandemic kind of upending everything that we know, I feel like it would be better to get those books to the people. I don't want it to mean the end of stores, but I also feel like if the stores are going to end anyway, as it seems like they might, wouldn't it be nice to have something that you can, actually still get your stuff out there if you're a creator?
I don't know. I like comic book stores if they're run well, very much like I like movie theaters if they're run well. AMC is not run well, so when they go out of business or when they declare bankruptcy, I'm perfectly fine with that. And comic book stores that are not run well, that's fine if they close. I don't have a problem with that. I guess part of the problem that I have is, for me, I look at something like Kickstarter as, hey, these are for the grassroots people. These are for indies. These are for disruptors. These are for people that are going through the traditional publishing process of going to an Image or a Skybound or a DC or whoever to get their book published. So this is like, when I think of Kickstarter and comics, I think really indie comics. I'm not talking about people sitting at their kitchen stapling things together, which, early days of Kickstarter's been around for, almost 20 years now. Those early days, yes, it was like, hey, here's my zine that I want to sell on Kickstarter. But now I'm looking at Kickstarter as, hey, yeah, there are people like Paul Miotti and Connor, who are just like, yeah, you know what? We want to create these comics, but we don't want to have to deal with the non-payment, the delayed payment, the et cetera. And we know if we can get this done, that we are reaching our audience. And therefore, we get them in that loop that if you are a Paul Miotti fan, that you're always going to be buying his comic. I'm just using that because he's got one running right now that you're always, or just ended, that you've always got them on the hook for the next installment or the next thing. And I kind of like it from that indie perspective. But when I see a publisher kind of come in here and say, hey, we're doing our next comic on Kickstarter and you guys can go get it here. I don't know. There's something about like that infiltration of the corporation.
Yeah, that's always been the case.
Kind of makes me feel weird about it.
It's like even stuff like what's that company that does that game that's like Ninja Turtles, but also like Hellboy, and it's like board games. It's like they've done Kickstarters, and I'm like, how big is this company, right? Or like for Sentinels of the Multiverse, there's been
Simon does that all the time. They go to Kickstarter all the time, and it's like, yeah, you're doing well. There's some things with that I'm not a big fan of, but when they do their Kickstarter campaign, they know within a very good percentage of, hey, listen, we sold 100,000 units of this thing. We know we need to print 120,000 of these because we know that there are people that the Kickstarter didn't reach, that these 20,000 will go to retailers, and we're not sitting with our thumbs up our butts with 100,000 units in the storeroom that nobody is buying, right? So I get that, but I don't know. There's something about it that feels weird.
Yeah, when Kickstarter first started, it was like very much like individuals doing stuff, right? And then small companies got in on the act, and we're like, well, it's okay because it's a small company,
right?
And then eventually, big companies got into it, and you're like, well, does this like sizable company that puts out, board games, or like, it does tend to be companies that do niche kind of stuff, right? Does this company that puts out like custom board games or like figurines or whatever, should they be on Kickstarter? Shouldn't it be part of like their business plan to not have to do this, to just take their profits and turn it into like the next wave of things they're selling?
Yeah. I mean, that seems like that should be it, right? Taking that risk as a business owner. On the other hand, because the comics industry is so shaky, if Boom Studios, and the one that did it just end? Yeah, it ended a few days ago, but they raised almost $900,000 for The Expanse: A Little Death, which is a comic book story that's coming up that reaches over 8,000 backers, right? And on the one hand, hey, great for Boom Studios. I applaud that people are doing this, and I do think that going this route kind of is an indicator, but that was also part of the solicitations of going to your comic book store and saying, hey, comic book store, I want to get this Boom Studios book and this Dynamite book and this DC book and this Marvel book. Please pre-order these for me. But I think that system is broken a lot because people don't know about the solicitations, et cetera. I don't know. I just, I like it because you are able to reach directly to your fans and maybe people who don't even know that an Expanse comic existed.
Right.
And so by going through Kickstarter, you're getting a wider audience on that. And it does lower the risk for a publisher like Boom that, hey, 8,000 copies sitting around, that may break the company if they're not able to get those into comic book stores. At least this way, they know it's getting into the hands of the reader.
Yeah, and the 2 months ahead of time pre-order, you have to go to a store, you have to already know, you have to have an idea. It's very much Stockholm syndrome for those of us who've been in the industry, because if you know that's how comics have been traditionally ordered since about 1996, it feels like it's perfectly normal. You go in, you get your previews, and in 2 months you get your books. That's insane. If you look at any other release model of any other type of entertainment, that is freaking nuts. And some people actually go and prepay for their comics, or sometimes you'll have that. I put down a tab. There's $100, and you pull comics until you hit my $100, and I'm just like, that's insane.
Man, wait till I tell you how Kickstarter campaigns work, Matthew. You pay up front for something that may be delivered sometime between the next 3 months and the next, in the case of the one that I just got recently, 5 years.
You do know that you're 3 months older than me, and thus do not get to be quite that condescending to me, right?
No, I do, because I am older than you.
If he doesn't, then you've got a lot of noogies to administer, Matthew, because he's been doing it for some time.
I know. Yeah. For 20 years, I'm used to it. It's fine.
So, you're still running into that thing about, hey, you have to know that the Kickstarter exists. You have to be part of that system of stuff. And I can see from the publishers, Stephen, why are you not writing a story about our Expanse title up on your major spoiler site? It's just like we're doing with solicitations. Yeah, I get it, but this is, I don't know. There's something about it that I don't feel warrants a post on major spoilers, because then the site would be nothing but Kickstarter campaign. Yeah. At which point I'm like, hey, wait a minute. There's a difference between me telling people, hey, there's this comic coming out, or hey, there's this new series coming out, and I don't tell you to go and buy it, and I'm not putting a link to anything in the news story, as opposed to, hey, you want me to write a story on the website that is putting money into your pocket, and I get what out of this?
Yeah. I don't know if this has changed. I don't know if Kickstarter campaigns in general have gotten better. I don't know if Kickstarter has put in more resources to help people.
In some cases.
As far as I know, if you give money to a Kickstarter campaign, you're taking a risk. You might never get the little tchotchkes that...
There's one person that I once considered a friend who got me for $300 for his collection of webcomic for the last 20 plus years of the series, and it is yet to be delivered. And anytime anybody asks him about it, he blocks them on social.
Yeah. So, so that hasn't really changed. So if you are a website, if you are a company whose job it is to tell people, then you value or people value your integrity as far as telling the truth or whatever. So when you promote a Kickstarter, you as a
yes.
you as a website, you as an entity are taking a risk with your
credibility.
With your credibility to your audience. Because so many Kickstarters look so good, right? They mock up this little box. It's like, oh, look at this deluxe box. It glows in the dark, and it's like, yeah, that looks amazing. I would love to have that, but it's never going to happen. It's just never going to happen. And some of them do, and some of them don't. But yeah, I feel the same way. Like people, obviously I have a much smaller audience than Major Spoilers, and my audience is close to a big circle with Major Spoilers, right? Like I get most of the people that follow me on social and stuff. Mm-hmm. On Major Spoilers. But even then, people will come to me and be like, "Hey, Rodrigo, can you retweet our Kickstarter?" And I'll be like, "Let me look at it. let me look at this stuff." And a lot of the time, I do.
Yeah. I don't mind sharing it on a
sometimes
social.
I don't.
For me, hitting a retweet is not a big deal. But yeah, sometimes I'll look at it like I got one today sitting in my box, and I was like, you know what? I'm not. This doesn't look good. This doesn't look like it's going to succeed. And that you're right. It's a credibility thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Listeners, what do you think? Is Stephen being too stingy? So there was another question brought up about it in the VIP chat about more interviews on the show. And I responded and I answered with my official response over on the VIP chat. So go listen to that. As an addendum or as a follow-up to that, what I don't want, because this happens the minute that people find out that I'm doing interviews, is, hey, how about you interview me because I got a Kickstarter coming up? And it's like, no. I'm not here to be a commercial for you. I'm here to talk to you about your craft. And if you just so happens, like when we had Matt Hawkins in here, it was, hey, you do have this new comic book that's coming out. I read it. I found it very interesting. Let's talk about you and the process of making and not a sales pitch for your comic.
It's like you hope to be sort of like a solid late night interview, right?
Yeah.
You talk to them, you connect with them, maybe make a joke or two, get everybody comfortable, talk about their craft, talk about what they're doing, talk about that good stuff. And then it's like, hey, by the way, do you have anything you're promoting? Yes, I do. I have this thing coming out. And then,
Yeah. And the Matt Brawley thing, same way. I love Amphibia. And I was approached to it. And if I had not been a fan of Amphibia, if Amphibia had not been a part of the household, I would have said no. I would have said no, thanks. There's no reason for me to talk about this. But because of that, it's like, heck yeah, let's bring him in. And I think if people go back and listen to that, you can hear I'm excited to talk about this show and this animation. And oh, yes, by the way, you do have a book coming out. That's great. But it's not, hey, I've got this great Kickstarter. Great. Let's tell us about the Kickstarter. Well, it started today and it'll run until the end of May. And we're trying to raise this much money. And here's what it's about. And it's like, great. What else is going on? Well, we've got some stretch goals. If we get to those stretch goals, oh, okay. And so what did you do? Well, we worked really hard on this Kickstarter campaign. It's like, no, I want to find out about you, not your Kickstarter campaign. So I know there's going to be some people that are turned off by the fact that I don't want you on my show if all you're doing is plugging a Kickstarter, because I'd rather have a conversation with you. And I think when people find out more about you and understand where you're coming from, then I think they're more interested in, let me read a little bit more about this. What does this guy have? He does have a Kickstarter. Well, this person sounded delightful. Let's go and check out their Kickstarter and see if it's something that I would enjoy. I don't know. So that's kind of where I wanted to get in and talk about that. Speaking of talking, that's all the talking that we have for this week. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for checking us out. Thank you for being part of the Major Spoilers experience. Thank you to all of our patrons. Listen, you can sign up for free over at patreon.com/major spoilers. And when we have free stuff, you'll be notified of all the free stuff that we post. But if you found some value in this show, and I know you did, if you found some information from this show, and I know you did, yeah, it's like 10 things you didn't know that you didn't know this week on the Major Spoilers podcast. Number 10, it's water is wet. I hate those videos. I hate those videos that it's like 10 things you didn't know about Dungeons and Dragons. There's a thing called the gelatinous cube.
They're even worse now because now they are just AI. Yeah. So it's like, so they don't even make sense. It's like number 10, the gelatinous cube. The gelatinous cube is a tall man who lives inside a dungeon. Sometimes it's a cube, right? Yeah, so it's like they're not even like properly or like, listen, they don't even make any sense anymore.
If you want your podcast to make sense, your Major Spoilers podcast to make sense, then by all means, make sure you head over to patreon.com/major spoilers, where we will not insult your intelligence on things like gelatinous cubes. Patreon.com.
Right. We'll insult each other's intelligence to your entertainment.
Well, patreon.com/major spoilers is where you need to go. Next week on the show, hey, IDW Publishing, we're going back into some Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Why? Because we know that you love comics and we do too, and we will talk with you soon.
If I had the X-ray vision of a Superman, I could save a few bucks and stand around and read through the covers of the comics on the stand. But although every other page would be backwards, I suppose I could still read the evens and the odds. Well, I don't know. Guess I haven't thought this all the way through. Plus, as soon as the comic book store guy knew, they kicked my butt out on the corner. What a major spoiler! What a major spoiler! Think about a better way. If I was hulking green or gray, I could just bust through that brick wall, take their comic books away. But then the little meat would deal with all the tanks and bombs and guns. Have you ever tried to read a series with all that going on? Guess I need to rethink this plan. How would I bag and board my comics with such huge hands? Guess I already told ya. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. If I'm Stark Raven, rich like a man of iron, I might not be surprised to find that I might actually have the hard cold to follow an entire storyline. But would I really even need to read up on all those escapades? I mean, who needs such distractions when your sister's such a babe? But the downside is such a beast, being shot up in a fun bee in the Middle East with a gang sign throwing soldier. What a major spoiler. What a major spoiler. Yeah, yeah, yeah. What a major spoiler. Whoa, 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 whoa. What a major spoiler.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.